Welcome to the second part of our week 3 presentation. And we are, in the past presentation, we described the design, um, the requirement gathering, the UI development part, and this lecture actually we are going to focus on program design and coding. So the main objectives are the change the color properties of an object, then add images to a picture box object, locate and save an image from the web, import an image into the program resources folder and change the size of an image. The second set of objectives, sorry, the the next objectives are set the visible property in the properties window, set the enabled properties in the property window, run a Visual Basic program, enter a Visual Basic code, understand Basic code statement formats. Now, the basic goal here, in this chapter is to um, include the code so that we can have the event based um, responses for your Windows form that we have generated during the first part of the presentation for this week. So we will be using IntelliSense. I'm going to show you what is IntelliSense, but we can use the IntelliSense to enter Visual Basic 2017 code statements. Use code. Then we will use code to set visible property of an object. So basically, whenever a button is clicked, we have to include the code, the the series of events that will take place following that event click, and then accordingly we have to disable, enable, hide, show several objects. So that's what we are going to do in this as a part of this objective. And then of course, we will correct the errors in the code, write code. We have to write code to apply the functionality behind the exit button, which is covered by the close procedure. We will print the code and prepare an event planning document. So the introduction, let's go jump into the introduction. A quick introduction. The users and others can approve the mockups as being functional, right? When they do that, the developer normally should make a variety of changes to the GUI to prepare it for the actual production version of the program. Um, Adding certain colors to the interface to make it more visually appealing. More importantly, to meet the accessibility requirement. Did you see that, by the way, that Facebook, the Facebook page is its front page is blue. That's because the blue is the most common color. There are certain people who has some color blindedness. So if you add the blue colors, that is visible to them. So that's pretty much, I mean, one of the thing about the accessibility, but there are other factors as well. So then acquiring and including images that are required for the program, setting the interface object properties in accordance with the needs of the program. Then the back color, basically the background color of an object. If you are doing something with your Windows, like Words, Microsoft Word document or PowerPoint document, you must be aware of the fact that according to the, you can change the background color, and you can also change the foreground color. In case of Visual Basic, these are called back color and fore color respectively. So we will show that too. So here, tap and link the Windows form object to select it. So back color and fore color properties, we are what we are going to do is that we need to tap or click the Windows form object to select it. If necessary, scroll in the properties window until the back color property is displayed, and then tap or click the right column of the back color property. Then, basically, we will be clicking the back color arrow, then tap or click the web tab to display the web tabbed page. If needed, scroll until white is displayed in the list of colors. Click white on the colored list. So these are the instructions you need to do. So here, so this is the screen. This is the screenshot. So you are adding back color of this total um, window form to white. So the process is, go to the property, click on the back color, and then click on here on the right hand side. You will see the a pop up, and you have to click the web tab, and there from there you can choose white. That way the background color of this form becomes white. Now, adding images to the picture box object, we didn't do that in the previous exercise, so we are going to describe it in this exercise. So the picture box objects are used to display a graphic image, right? The general steps for displaying an image in a picture box object are as follows. First of all, you need to locate the image. How do you locate it? You can locate it from your desktop itself, from your device. You might locate this image on the web, on your device. So, more usual is locating it from your device. Then you need to import the image into the resources folder. This step makes the image available for display within the picture box object. Now, you don't have to manually copy anything anywhere. We will show from the screen itself that you will be able to simply add it using the properties window. So you could open your web, for locating the image from the web, you need to open the web browser. You have to enter the URL address in the address box, then press the enter key, you know. And also, you could select the free materials tab, then click the save to my home button. Now, if necessary, click the student companion to display your student resources. When you have the book, there is a student companion. I'm going to provide you for this exercise. I am going to provide you all the images necessary. So then, in the left pane, you need to click the data files, click the download now link, click save as, and then navigate to the location on your computer where you have downloaded the files. Click save button to save the image. So with the Visual Studio and the desired program open, you need to select the desired picture box object by clicking on it. Scroll in the picture box properties window until the image property is visible. Then you click the image property name in the left list of the properties window. Then you click the ellipsis button in the right column of the image property. Click the import button in the select resources dialog box. Use the features of the open dialog box to locate the file you wanna import into the program. So, the whole activity is screenshotted here, you know. So, suppose you want to import the pumpkin spice. So, basically, you can see that we have imported it into the resources folder, and then it is being shown here. So, next point is size the image, because you see here you don't understand by looking at it what it is. So, you have to make the image to be fitted, to be fitting inside the box, picture box. How do you do that? So for that, you need to select the picture box object to resize, and then scroll in the properties window until you see the size mode property. At that point, you tap or click the size mode property name in the left column, and then tap or click the size mode arrow in the right column of the size mode property. Finally, you tap or click stretch image in the size mode list. So here, so you need to, this is the size mode property, and you need to click the stretch image. That way the image will fit inside the picture box. Now, next uh, action is to set the visible property. Visible property. For that, actually, you select the desired picture box object, scroll in the properties window until the visible property is displayed, tap or click the visible property name in the left column, and then tap or click the visible arrow in the right column of the visible property. Tap or click false on the visible property list. What it will do? It will make the property, it will make the picture to disappear whenever it whenever you start the form. So the visible property, I mean the visibility is selected there. You see here in this screenshot, you see the properties area. I mean this area here, actually you can see that the visible property is selected as false. That means when you start the window, by default this image will not be visible. Okay, so then how do you set the enabled property? I mean the second part is you need to select the desired object, scroll in the properties window until the enabled property is displayed, tap or click the enabled property name in the left column, and then tap or click the enabled arrow in the right column of the enabled property. Then you tap or click false in the enabled property list. So type buttons to display the IntelliSense list. So I'm talking about, you have to go inside the code and do these things. And then type a period, type E, press spacebar, press the equal sign key, press spacebar again, and then type the true to select true in the IntelliSense list. Press the enter key to enter the completed statement and place the insertion point on the next line. So I'm narrating it, but you will see after that in my demo, coding demo, these steps are being followed. So let's move on, and we will get back here. But for now, just try to follow these steps, because these are important steps to follow in order to um, add the enable and disable things. So here, enabled property. So what you do here is that you enable property for this button, select latte button, is set to false. Now, as I was saying, that you need to open the code, you need to do some coding, right? I mean, this is a application development class. So without coding, it doesn't make sense to be in the class. So you need to open the file, that v.vb, visual basic file, and you need to follow the steps. Like when you enable it, you see the some property, the button name dot enabled. So what you do is that you write the property name, then you place a dot, then you see that a lookup comes up, a pop-up comes up. So that is called IntelliSense, and there you select enabled or disabled, whatever it is. You select enabled, and then you set it to be true. So that means once you click this button, this particular button will become, once you click this pumpkin pie button, your select latte button becomes enabled. So next step is to run the program, right? So um, running the program means, what does it mean to run the program? The running the program means that it is built, or basically compiled, from the instructions you have written or generated in Visual Basic into a form of instructions that computer can execute. So you are writing a code. What does that code do? As remember what we discussed in our very first session. So basically what it does is very simple. Once you run the program, your program, your Visual Basic program um, interprets your instructions that you wrote on the program. So for example, here you wrote multiple instructions. So Visual Basic translates those instructions into a format that your machine, your device, or your computer understands, and then it executes, you know. So point to start debugging button on the standard toolbar. So you have to do that, and tap or click the start debugging button on the standard toolbar. So once you run the program, so you will see this screen. So pumpkin image is not displayed, nor the others image, I mean mocha. So once you click it, it will be displayed, we will see. But then this image, this button select latte, is not displayed either. Then you can see the close button, the exit window is always activated, latte selection window is here as a whole. So then what you do, you have to add the Visual Basic code for event handling. So event handler, what does it do? Event handler handles the event that the user action triggers by executing code that performs the required processing. With the Visual Studio, so we are using 2022. So using the Visual Studio, it doesn't matter you use 2022, 2029, or even 2027. The main instructions remains the same, but I mean, in the higher version, latest version, they add more uh, versatility, more properties, but everything is backward compatible. So with the Visual Studio and the desired program open, the design tabbed window is visible. Point to the desired button object in the Windows form object. Double tap or double click the button object, then you will be able to see the code here. So once you double tap the button object, your code will be generated. That is the beauty of the Microsoft tools, that using the Visual Studio, if you are coding Visual Basic or C Sharp, let us say, the advantage here is you have something on your GUI, some mockup. You double click on the mockup, and then the framework, the Visual Studio integrated development environment, will auto generate some code for you. So you don't have to write it by yourself. This is a very contrastive difference between the Microsoft tools and other frameworks, like let us say Java, Python, something like that. This auto generation of code, very in this way, I mean, everything is very closely bound. This really accelerates you to do the coding, and from the uh, organizational perspective, this gives you some rapidity in the development. So that's why many organizations prefer to use Microsoft stack of code rather than the other different stacks. But that's a different argument. There are pluses and minuses on both sides of the story. We will talk about it later, but right now let's focus on our current assignment. I mean, our current discussion. So you get the code. So is it a complete code? The answer is no. You have just a template. Basically, you got a function or some subroutine generated. So you see private sub stands for subroutine. Subroutine is a module. So inside your code, which is a class, inside the class you have different subroutines. So class, again, let's regroup. You know what is class, right? Class is the template of an object. In your case, what is the object? The object is the form, window form. So inside the class, you have multiple attributes, you have multiple functionalities. So in Visual Basic, a sub or subroutine represents a functionality. Okay, so then you what you do is that you basically insert code at the insertion point. So your code is inserted here. Whatever you want to do with the window, that will be written here. So the Visual Basic syntax specifies how each statement should be written. When the user taps or clicks a button while the program is running, an action associated with coding statement will occur. So here you have the object name pick pumpkin. So you set it visible, I mean dot operator. Then you will see property to be set equals true. So that means once you click the button, the pumpkin picture will be visible. That's about it. So here, once the button is clicked, here insertion point, you sorry. So insertion point, you insert this piece of code. After building the code, if you run the code, your button, I mean your picture becomes visible. That's about it. It's that simple. So again, general format of a visual basic statement important because it's important for your quiz. You will see, you may expect to see some questions like this in the quiz. So basically you write object name. Let us say pick pumpkin is an object. Then you dot property, whatever property enable, equals property value. Value is true, false. In this case, it may be different. So examples are written here. IntelliSense. What is IntelliSense? It displays all allowable entries you can make in a visual basic statement each time a dot operator, equal sign or other special character is required for the statement. So with the code window open, the insertion point positioned where you want to insert the code, type pick. To identify the correct entry, type its next letter until the entry is selected. When the IntelliSense highlights the correct object name, press the key corresponding to the entry that is to follow the object name. In this case, press the period key. As with the object name in step 2, the next step is to enter one or more characters until IntelliSense highlights the desired property. In the list, type the letter V for the visible property. Press the key for the character that is to follow the property name. In this case, press the space bar. Press the equal sign key on the keyboard and then press the space bar and then the letter T. Type T for true. Press the key for the character that follows the true entry. In this case, press the enter key. So here, that's the example. So you enter the statement here and then true is entered in the statement. So similarly, you can set the visible property to false as well. You insert the false. To insert a blank line following the event code generated by Visual Studio that begins with the word private, tap or click anywhere in the line and then press the end. Then you press the enter key. Type the first line of the comments beginning with an apostrophe and then press the enter key. So it will be like this. So you have, I mean, this is the creating the comment. So the comments are not interpreted by the compiler. So if you write a comment, it is not going to be interpreted by the compiler. It will not change the functionality of the code. That is, you code it, you build it, you display it. Including a comment will not change anything. It does not have any effect. But why? Then why do we need it? Because we need to document the code. Why do we document the code in this way? The answer is, when you code within an institutional framework as a part of a team, you need to collaborate. These comments are a, they provide a mean to collaborate between others, like among the developers. Why? Because you have a subroutine, it is doing something. Why don't we write that in a comment so that next time, suppose some other developer has to change it, there is another requirement, some change request is initiated. At that point, you will that developer will simply look into your comment and they will see what this particular piece of code does, and they will understand without even asking you. Maybe, I mean, people change their jobs. Somebody leaves company, so there is no way to call that person and ask, hey, this is what did you write? Line number 1059 of your abc.bb code. No, doesn't make sense, right? So that's why, as a developer, we always put the comments inside our code. It is a best practice. It's not mandatory, but it's best practice. So there may be different comments, like the same line comments, which is facilitated by a dash sign, or multi-line comments. Sorry, facilitated by apostrophe identifies the comment. On the same line, you put an apostrophe and write the comment. So tap or click the left of the word public on the line 1 in the program to place the insert point on that line. Press the enter key and then press up arrow key. Type an apostrophe a space, the text program name, and then press the tab key. Type the program name and then pass the enter key. So the next part is correcting the errors in the code. As usual, using IntelliSense to help you enter the code reduces the likelihood of coding errors. So IntelliSense, actually, it's an intelligent tool provided by Visual Studio. So it will point you to the correct direction. If you would write the code using your notepad, you could do it, right? You can do it, but if you do it using your notepad, then it is impossible to know in advance whether there is a message, there is an error. So that's why actually we use an IDE like Visual Studio. It will give you the error in advance so that you are not surprised at the time of building. But does that mean that your build will be free from errors? The answer is, it depends. Your build will be free from syntax errors, very obvious coding errors, but it will not be free from logic errors. Maybe you are doing some other mistakes which will not be covered by your uh, Visual Studio. The parsing by the Visual Studio. So those will be included in the build error. So what happens is that if you want to build a project with error, it will alert you like this. Do you want to, there are some build errors, do you want to build the project? You should say no to that and then go back to the code. Visual Studio is smart enough to show you the actual error. It will be pointing things to red by red, and then you correct it, and next time you build it, possibly it will not show that error. Okay, so once your code is error free, then you are free to build. So in order to correct the errors again, you need to tap the no button in the Microsoft Visual Studio dialog box. You know this dialog box I'm talking about. Here you must say no. I mean, you cannot build a code with an existing error, right? So you have to press no. Then you need to double tap or double click anywhere on the error line. That will actually point you to the line of the code where your error is actually happening. Okay, so then you simply correct the error. I mean, in this particular case, an apostrophe for the command was missing, but it may not be that in your case. I mean, you may run into that situation, and there is no problem. I mean, as a developer, we always when we write the code, there can be errors, but as a developer, we should know how to correct those errors. That is the most important. Making an error is not important. I mean, we are careful, but sometimes maybe for some reason, maybe instead of capitalized T for the true, we put a small t, and that creates some error. So Visual Studio will alert you, and then you have to correct it. That's it. So once you correct the error, the code will go back to the normal because you won't see any red sign anywhere, and then you can move forward. But then, I mean, there can be some additional click events on the tab page. Double tap or double click exit window button object in our case. So then again it will create a click event subroutine. You know, I mean, it's a very nice utility. You want to add some functionality, some event to a button, double click it on your mockup. It will generate the code for you. We have seen it before, we are seeing it now as well. So then you enter the comments. The first code written for an event, however, should be comment code that identifies the event and the processing that will occur. I mean, it says should be, but you know what? I mean, whenever we do programming in a high performance environment, like we have to do thousands of lines of codes within a day, something like that. Writing comments, sometimes we don't get time. So, what's the solution in that case? So, there are many solutions. First of all, the most viable solution that I can suggest is that make your modules like subroutines class, name your subroutines, name your class in a way that it says what it does. You know, for example, if you want to um, select a coffee flavor, you can create a subroutine with a name select coffee flavor. Everybody will know that you are doing that. But that does not, I mean, mean that you don't have to add the comments. If you have time, you may revisit your code later on, and then you can add your documentation inside the code. So next, the last part is the close procedure. So a procedure that is said to be pre-written is a set of pre-written code that can be called by a statement in Visual Basic program. When the procedure is called, the program processes the code. The procedure used to close a window and terminate the program is the close procedure. It's given to you when you write the code. You don't have to code it. You will call this close procedure in this syntax: close and then parentheses. There is nothing between the parentheses. It's a part of the Visual Basic, I mean, framework. You can call it framework under which you are coding the environment. It's a part of that, and it's a part of the library itself. So you don't have to write your own code for the close. So once what you do there, you have a button. You have to double click the button, and then that will open up. I mean, that will create the template for you. You simply have to include close procedure there with appropriate syntax, that is close parentheses, and that's it. You have to save it. So tap and click. So how you can print a code? Tap or click the file on the menu bar to display the file menu. You can click the print on the file menu to display the print dialog box. Make any other needed selections in the print dialog box. Then click OK button in the print dialog box to print the code. So writing code is the essence of programming in Visual Basic, and much of the emphasis in this course will be on writing the code required to implement applications of different kinds. Next, we talk about event planning document. An event means the user has initiated an action that causes the program to perform the appropriate type of processing in response. The event planning document is a table that specifies objects in the user interface that will cause events, the actions taken by the user to trigger the events, and the event processing that must occur. So the event processing documentation should be like that. You have to write the program name, then the name of the associated developer, you write the object name, and then you give the date. Then you list the events and where is it happening. So after the events and tasks within the events have been identified, the developer is ready to code the program, entering Visual Basic statements to accomplish the tasks specified in the event planning document. Developer enters the code and implements the logic. So this is again the event planning document. This is a document that will help you to identify the events, and then once you identify the events and the what is going to happen with the events, then it is absolutely easy for you to code them, because all you have to do, you have to go to the button and double click as I showed you before, and then you have to code it. That's it. So what we have learned here is basically we have theoretically learned how to fine tune a GUI to maximize its usability and to enter code for object event handlers. Like all other times, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. The best option is to send me email through the canvas. That's the best way to reach me. I will take about 24 to 48 hours to respond to your email. So that's it for the chapter 3. We will I will give you some live demo for the code that we talked about right now. And again, I mean, I'm not yet completed grading your week 1 and week 2 assignments, so those are um, in the process. You will um, hopefully see week 1 and week 2 graded by the end of this week. And also, you should expect your first quiz in the beginning of next week, next Monday. That quiz will be made up of chapter 1 to 3. So be prepared for that. I mean, if you follow the slides, it shouldn't be a problem to answer the questions in the quiz. So yeah, just I will post all the homeworks gradually during the week, and then the quizzes will show up as well. Okay, thank you.